we begin our journey into the vast and intricate tapestry of the past, a journey that invites us to gently drift through the annals of history, settling softly into the 12th century. Our focus tonight, as the world outside prepares for slumber, is on a figure whose life was as rich and complex as the stained glass windows adorning cathedrals of her era, Eleanor of Aquitaine. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hum of ancient stones, the scent of damp earth and blooming herbs carried on a medieval breeze. This is the world into which Eleanor was born, a world brimming with knights and troubadours, where alliances were forged with steel and broken with whispers. Eleanor's story is not merely one of queenship, but of immense personal power, political shrewdness, and, most notably for our exploration tonight, a series of profound betrayals that shaped not only her destiny, but the very course of European history. Her narrative unfolds like a grand, meticulously woven tapestry, each thread representing a decision, a relationship, or a seismic shift in power. We will trace these threads with a calm and measured pace, allowing the details to emerge like shadows at dusk, inviting quiet contemplation. Born around 1122, likely in the city of Poitiers, Eleanor was the eldest daughter of William X, Duke of Aquitaine and Count of Poitou, and Eleanor de Châtellerault. Aquitaine, in those days, was not merely a duchy. It was a sprawling, vibrant territory in southwestern France, larger than the king's own domain. It was a land of vineyards and poetry, of flourishing towns and independent spirit, a place where culture thrived and troubadour songs echoed through sun-drenched valleys. To be born into the ducal house of Aquitaine was to be born into immense wealth, strategic importance, and a cultural heritage that was perhaps unmatched in medieval Europe. Eleanor's father, William X, was himself a man of considerable intellect and a patron of the arts, inheriting the sophisticated court of his own father, William IX, the first known troubadour. From this environment, Eleanor absorbed not just the graces of courtly life, but also a deep understanding of governance, diplomacy, and the complex web of feudal allegiances. Unlike many noble women of her time, Eleanor was afforded an exceptional education. She was literate in Latin, a rare accomplishment, and skilled in arithmetic, horsemanship, and hunting. She was also deeply immersed in the vibrant literary and musical traditions of Aquitaine, where tales of chivalry and courtly love were not just entertainment, but a way of life. This upbringing instilled in her a formidable intellect and an independent spirit that would profoundly influence her future actions. The notion of inheritance in the medieval period was fraught with complexities, particularly for women. Yet, in Aquitaine, a different tradition often prevailed. While primogeniture, the right of the firstborn son, was generally the norm, the Aquitanian custom allowed for female succession in the absence of male heirs, particularly when the female heir was as capable and well-prepared as Eleanor. When William Tex, Eleanor's father, tragically died on pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in April 1137, a sudden and unexpected turn of events propelled his 15-year-old daughter onto the grand stage of European politics. At an age when many young women were still under the strict tutelage of their mothers or tutors, Eleanor became the sole heir to one of the most powerful and desirable territories in all of France. Her lands stretched from the Loire River to the Pyrenees, encompassing a vast swathe of fertile land, prosperous cities, and valuable Atlantic ports. This inheritance was not merely a title, it was immense political capital, a dowry of unparalleled value, and a prize that every ambitious monarch in Europe coveted. The death of William X was a moment of immense vulnerability, but also immense opportunity for Eleanor. The ducal power, wealth, and strategic importance of Aquitaine were now hers. This sudden acquisition of power made her the most sought-after bride in Europe. Her hand in marriage would unite her vast territories with another realm, dramatically altering the balance of power on the continent. This pivotal moment set the stage for the initial betrayals she would experience, as the world around her, driven by ambition and geopolitical maneuvering, began to view her not just as a person, but as a territory to be acquired, a prize to be won. Her person became inextricably linked with her vast lands, a testament to the fact that in medieval Europe, land was power, and Eleanor embodied that power in an unprecedented way for a woman of her time. As we gently close this initial chapter, Let us consider the weight of such an inheritance, the expectations it placed upon a young woman, and the inexorable current that began to pull her into the turbulent waters of royal marriages and political machinations. The path ahead for Eleanor was destined to be one of both grandeur and profound personal challenge, a narrative woven with threads of power, duty, and the complex human experience of betrayal. As our journey through history continues, we gently transition from the vibrant courts of Aquitaine to the more austere, yet equally politically charged realm of the French monarchy. Eleanor's immense inheritance, as we've discussed, made her the most desirable bride in all of Europe. Her hand in marriage was not merely a personal union, but a grand political maneuver, a chance to absorb vast territories into a kingdom. The individual who ultimately secured this immense prize was Louis VII, the young king of France. Their marriage, solemnized on July 25, 1137, in Bordeaux, marked the beginning of a complex and often strained relationship that would profoundly shape Eleanor's life and the geopolitical landscape of the 12th century. Imagine the young Eleanor, spirited and accustomed to the vibrant liberal courts of Aquitaine, suddenly transplanted to the French court. It was a stark contrast. The French court, particularly under Louis VII and his influential advisor, Abbot Suger of Saint-Denis, was known for its piety, its intellectual rigor, and its comparatively restrained atmosphere. Louis himself, originally intended for a monastic life, was deeply religious, mild-mannered, and perhaps a touch naive in the cutthroat world of medieval politics. Eleanor, on the other hand, was renowned for her beauty, her wit, and her love of luxury and entertainment. This fundamental clash of personalities and cultural expectations became a recurring theme throughout their marriage, sowing the seeds of discontent and, eventually, betrayal. The early years of their marriage were marked by the struggle for a male heir, a constant pressure on any medieval royal couple. For nearly a decade, no son was born, a fact that would undoubtedly have been a source of anxiety for Louis and a point of potential vulnerability for Eleanor. This absence of a direct male successor added another layer of tension to their already complex relationship. However, the most significant test of their union, and a crucial chapter in the narrative of betrayal, came with the Second Crusade. In 1147, propelled by religious fervor and political ambition, Louis VII answered the call of Pope Eugenius III to embark on a crusade to the Holy Land. What was unusual, and indeed unprecedented, was Eleanor's decision to accompany him. This was not a customary practice for queens, and her presence, along with a significant contingent of her own Aquitanian vassals, was a testament to her independent spirit and perhaps a desire to maintain influence, even on such a perilous journey. Imagine the arduous journey, the dusty roads, the unpredictable weather, the logistical nightmares of moving thousands of armed men and their retinues across vast distances. It was a monumental undertaking, fraught with danger and discomfort. The crusade itself proved to be a disaster for the French. Mismanagement, internal squabbles, and fierce resistance from Muslim forces led to significant losses and ultimately failure. It was during this grueling expedition that the true cracks in Louis and Eleanor's marriage began to widen, exposing underlying resentments and fostering an atmosphere of mutual suspicion. Rumors, fueled by courtly gossip and political machinations, began to circulate about Eleanor's conduct. There were whispers of an affair with her uncle, Raymond of Poitiers, Prince of Antioch, a charismatic and handsome man with whom Eleanor shared a strong bond, and, crucially, a similar love for the more liberal and cultured life of the southern French aristocracy. Whether these rumors held any truth remains a subject of historical debate, but their impact on Louis was undeniable. For a deeply pious and somewhat insecure king, such whispers would have been a profound humiliation, a betrayal of trust and royal dignity. The strained atmosphere between the royal couple intensified, exacerbated by the failures of the crusade itself. Eleanor, frustrated by Louis's military ineptitude and perhaps weary of his ascetic nature, became increasingly outspoken in her criticism. She openly expressed her desire for an annulment, citing consanguinity, the argument that they were too closely related to be legitimately married under canon law. This was a common legal loophole used in medieval times to dissolve inconvenient royal marriages. But for Eleanor to initiate it so openly was a bold and potentially dangerous move, a public declaration of her dissatisfaction and a profound act of marital defiance. Upon their return to France in 1149, the tension was palpable. The failed crusade had diminished Louis's prestige, and Eleanor's independent spirit seemed to chafe more than ever under the restraints of the French court. The argument for consanguinity was indeed technically valid, as they were distantly related through common ancestors, a frequent occurrence among European royalty who intermarried within a relatively small pool of noble families. However, the true motivation for Eleanor's pursuit of annulment was almost certainly political and personal incompatibility rather than a sudden discovery of a distant familial tie. For Louis, the annulment presented a profound dilemma. To grant it would mean losing Aquitaine, a territory he desperately wished to retain. To refuse would mean continued marital discord and potentially further humiliation. Abbot Suger, Louis's wise and respected advisor, understood the immense political implications of an annulment. He vehemently opposed it, recognizing that the loss of Aquitaine would severely weaken the French crown. His council, for a time, managed to hold the marriage together, emphasizing the importance of dynastic stability and the strategic value of Eleanor's lands. However, after Suger's death in 1151, the final barrier to the annulment was removed. Without his steady hand and astute political maneuvering, Louis was more susceptible to Eleanor's persistent demands and the growing desire to rid himself of a wife who seemed more a source of trouble than support. The annulment was finally granted on March 21, 1152, by an assembly of bishops at Beaugency. The stated reason was consanguinity, but the true underlying cause was a profound chasm of personality, ambition, and a series of perceived betrayals that had eroded the foundations of their union. For Eleanor, this was a liberation, a bold reclaiming of her autonomy. For Louis, it was a profound loss, not just of a wife, but of the vast Aquitanian territories that had accompanied her. This annulment, seemingly a private marital affair, was in fact a seismic event in European politics, a testament to Eleanor's power and determination. It set the stage for her next, even more impactful marital alliance, an alliance that would fundamentally reshape the map of Europe and solidify her place as one of history's most fascinating and formidable figures. As we allow ourselves to drift deeper into the tranquility of the past, let us ponder the courage it must have taken for a woman in the 12th century to challenge a king, to dismantle a royal marriage, and to chart her own course, however treacherous the waters might be. Having dissolved her marriage to the King of France, Eleanor of Aquitaine found herself once again the most eligible and indeed the most sought-after woman in Europe. Her immense wealth and lands remained hers, and her spirit, far from being broken by the trials of her first marriage and the rigors of the crusade, seemed only to have been sharpened. As we gently continue our historical journey, we arrive at a pivotal moment, a swift and decisive action that would send shockwaves across the continent and irrevocably alter the balance of power. Eleanor's marriage to Henry Plantagenet. Barely 2 months after her annulment from Louis II, on May 18, 1152, Eleanor married Henry, Count of Anjou and Duke of Normandy. This was an act of breathtaking speed and political audacity. Imagine the whispers that must have swept through the courts of Europe. A queen, recently divorced from one of the most powerful monarchs, marrying a man who was, at that point, still a count, albeit a highly ambitious and rapidly ascending one. The motivations behind this swift union were multifaceted, driven by a blend of personal attraction, mutual ambition, and shrewd political calculation. Henry Plantagenet was, in many ways, the antithesis of Louis VII. He was a man of boundless energy, fierce ambition, and considerable intelligence. Born in 1133, he was nearly a decade younger than Eleanor, a fact that would have been noted by contemporaries. He possessed a restless, almost manic drive, a keen legal mind, and a formidable military prowess. His patrimony, the County of Anjou, was strategically located, and through his mother, Matilda, he had a strong claim to the English throne. At the time of their marriage, Henry was already Duke of Normandy, a powerful domain just across the English Channel. Eleanor, with her vast Aquitanian territories, brought to the union not just immense wealth, but also a crucial southern flank, completing a formidable arc of territories stretching from the Scottish borders to the Pyrenees. This marriage was not just a personal union, it was a political earthquake. For Louis XVI, it was the ultimate betrayal. He had annulled his marriage to Eleanor, supposedly to regain full control over his kingdom, only for her to immediately marry his most dangerous rival. The union of Aquitaine with Anjou and Normandy created a vast, sprawling entity often referred to as the Angevin Empire, though it was more of a collection of personal fiefdoms under Henry's control than a centralized empire. This new power block effectively encircled the King of France, creating a constant source of tension and conflict that would define Anglo-French relations for centuries to come. Louis felt personally humiliated and politically outmaneuvered. This act, more than any other, fueled his lifelong animosity towards Henry and Eleanor. The early years of their marriage were, by all accounts, productive and passionate. Eleanor and Henry were a formidable power couple, dynamic and ambitious. They shared a common vision for their vast domains and a deep understanding of the intricacies of medieval power politics. Within a short span, they produced a remarkable number of children, a testament to their physical connection and dynastic success. Their first son, William, was born in 1153, followed quickly by Henry the Young King in 1155, Matilda in 1156, Richard, later the Lionheart, in 1157, Geoffrey in 1158, Eleanor in 1162, Joan in 1165, and John, later Lackland, in 1166. This prolificacy was crucial for securing the future of their burgeoning empire and providing multiple heirs to inherit its various components. In 1154, 2 years after their marriage, Henry achieved his ultimate ambition. He became Henry II, King of England. This crowning achievement solidified the Angevin Empire and made Eleanor Queen of England, a title she would hold for over 3 decades. The transformation was complete. From Duchess of Aquitaine to Queen of France, and now Queen of England, Eleanor's journey was one of unprecedented ascent. She traveled extensively with Henry throughout their vast domains, demonstrating a keen interest in governance and administration. She played an active role in the political life of her new kingdom, often holding court, receiving ambassadors, and exercising significant influence. However, as with many power marriages, the initial harmony eventually began to fray. Henry's boundless energy and relentless ambition meant he was often away from court, campaigning, or administering his vast territories. His constant infidelity, a common practice for medieval monarchs, but nonetheless a source of pain and resentment, also began to take its toll on their relationship. Eleanor, proud and independent, would not have tolerated such slights lightly. As the years passed and their children grew, the initial shared purpose that bound them together began to dissipate, replaced by increasing friction and a growing sense of alienation. One significant source of tension was the question of Aquitaine. While Eleanor had brought it into the marriage, she viewed it as her ancestral domain, a possession distinct from Henry's other lands. She expected her influence there to remain paramount, and she fiercely protected its customs and rights. Henry, however, saw it as an integral part of his rapidly expanding territories, to be governed and exploited as he saw fit. This clash over the control and future of Aquitaine would become a major point of contention, sowing seeds of deep distrust between them. The initial union, born of strategic alliance and apparent mutual admiration, was slowly succumbing to the very pressures of power and territorial ambition it sought to consolidate. The stage was being set for another profound series of betrayals, not just between husband and wife, but between parents and their children, a dramatic unfolding of dynastic conflict that would consume the Plantagenet family for years to come. As we settle into the quiet contemplation of this shift, consider how even the most advantageous alliances can unravel when individual wills and territorial claims clash, pulling apart the very fabric of royal families. Our gentle journey through the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine now brings us to a period of intense personal and political turmoil, where the grandeur of the Angevin Empire began to mask profound internal strife. The initial passion and shared ambition between Eleanor and Henry II had, by the 1170s, curdled into resentment and open hostility. As we settle into this next chapter, Imagine the vast, sprawling courts of England and France, bustling with courtiers and schemers, where loyalty was a fickle currency and familial bonds were often tested to their breaking point. The central tragedy of this period was the escalating conflict between Henry II and his own sons, a conflict that Eleanor would not only witness but actively participate in, a profound act of betrayal against her husband. Henry II, with his boundless energy and autocratic tendencies, struggled to relinquish any real power, even to his adult heirs. He had crowned his eldest surviving son, Henry, as Henry the Young King in 1170, a move intended to secure the succession. However, this was a titular kingship. The younger Henry was granted the title, but little actual authority or lands to govern, leading to immense frustration. Richard, the next eldest, was designated to inherit Aquitaine, Eleanor's ancestral duchy, while Geoffrey was destined for Brittany, and John, the youngest, was promised Ireland. This system, designed by Henry to divide and conquer, ultimately fostered deep-seated resentment among his sons. They felt stifled, denied the independent power and revenue that came with their titles. They clamored for real authority, demanding lands and income commensurate with their royal status. Their father, however, clung tightly to every ounce of his vast power, unwilling to delegate genuine authority, fearing any challenge to his supreme control. This paternal intransigence became a festering wound within the family, leading to open rebellion. It was into this volatile familial dynamic that Eleanor, increasingly alienated from her husband, cast her lot with her sons. By the early 1170s, Eleanor and Henry's relationship had deteriorated significantly. Henry's numerous affairs were well known, most notably his long-standing liaison with Rosamund Clifford, often referred to as the Fair Rosamund. This public humiliation, combined with Henry's overbearing nature and his increasingly tight control over her beloved Aquitaine, pushed Eleanor to her breaking point. She felt sidelined, her influence diminished, and her personal dignity affronted. In 1173, the simmering discontent erupted into what became known as the Great Revolt, or the Rebellion of 1173 to 1174. This was not merely a family squabble. It was a vast, coordinated rebellion involving Henry the Young King, Richard, and Geoffrey, all supported by their disgruntled mother, Eleanor. They found allies in Henry II's long-standing enemies, King Louis VII of France, the former husband of Eleanor, who eagerly seized the opportunity to weaken his powerful rival, King William I of Scotland, and various disgruntled barons within the Angevin domains. Eleanor's role in instigating and supporting the rebellion was crucial. She actively encouraged her sons, perhaps seeing in their rebellion a means to regain her own power and to protect the autonomy of Aquitaine from Henry II's encroaching centralizing tendencies. She traveled through Aquitaine, raising support and funds for the rebel cause. She sent her younger sons, Geoffrey and Richard, to the French court, effectively placing them under Louis VII's protection and further cementing the alliance against Henry. This was a profound act of disloyalty, a wife openly siding with her children and foreign adversaries against her reigning husband and king. It was a spectacular act of betrayal that would have devastating consequences for her. The rebellion spread rapidly, encompassing vast territories across the Angevin Empire. Battles raged in Normandy, Brittany, Anjou, and England. For a time, it seemed as if Henry II's vast empire might crumble under the combined weight of internal dissent and external aggression. However, Henry, despite his personal flaws, was a remarkably capable military commander and a shrewd politician. He responded with characteristic vigor and ruthlessness. He managed to divide his enemies, offering concessions to some and overwhelming others with his superior forces and tactical acumen. One of the most dramatic moments of the conflict came when Eleanor, attempting to flee from Poitiers to the French court to join her rebel sons, was intercepted by Henry's agents. Captured, she was brought before her furious husband. The exact circumstances of her capture remain somewhat shrouded in the mists of time, but the outcome was stark and unforgiving. Henry II, deeply wounded by her perceived treachery and fearing her continued influence over his rebellious sons, took drastic action. Eleanor was placed under house arrest and effectively imprisoned. Her long confinement began in late 1174, initially at Chinon, then Salisbury, and finally, for the majority of her imprisonment, at Winchester and then at Old Sarum, in various royal residences across England. Her imprisonment was not a harsh dungeon experience typically depicted in fiction, but it was nonetheless a significant curtailment of her freedom and power. She was allowed a degree of comfort, including her personal retinue, but she was under constant surveillance and forbidden from actively participating in political life. For a woman of her vibrant intellect and independent spirit, this confinement was undoubtedly a profound punishment, a living death for her political ambitions. Her sons, despite their initial success, were eventually defeated by Henry II's forces. Henry the young king, Richard, and Geoffrey were compelled to make peace with their father, though their reconciliation was always uneasy and fragile. The rebellion had been crushed, but the seeds of dynastic discord had been deeply sown. Henry II had secured his empire, but at a tremendous personal cost, and his relationship with his sons, and especially with Eleanor, was irrevocably broken. For 16 long years, from 1174 until Henry II's death in 1189, Eleanor remained under varying degrees of royal custody. Her vibrant life, once a whirl of political maneuvering and cultural patronage, was reduced to a quiet existence, largely removed from the public eye. This prolonged imprisonment was a direct consequence of her active involvement in the Great Revolt, a stark demonstration of the price of defying a powerful monarch, particularly when that monarch was your own husband. It serves as a powerful testament to the severity of her betrayal in Henry's eyes and the absolute extent of his power. As we allow ourselves to drift into a state of quiet reflection, consider the profound silence that must have descended upon Eleanor's life during these years, a sharp contrast to the tumultuous activity that had defined her existence until then. As our tranquil journey through the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine continues, we now arrive at a dramatic turning point, the end of her long imprisonment, and her astonishing reemergence onto the European political stage. Imagine the quiet, almost forgotten years of her confinement, a stark contrast to the vibrant, tumultuous life she had led. Yet, even in the shadows of captivity, the tides of history continued to flow, bringing new opportunities and renewed challenges. For 16 long years, from 1174 to 1189, Eleanor was held under strict, though not always harsh, surveillance by her husband, Henry II. Her release was not a matter of clemency, but a direct consequence of the inexorable march of time and the shifting dynamics within the Plantagenet family. Her confinement was a direct result of her perceived betrayal in supporting her son's rebellion. However, as the 1180s drew to a close, the aging King Henry II found himself increasingly embattled, not by foreign enemies, but by the relentless ambition of his own surviving sons, Richard and John, and the machinations of the new French king, Philip II Augustus. Henry II's later years were consumed by continuous warfare with King Philip and, more painfully, by renewed conflict with his favorite son, Richard. Richard, known to history as the Lionheart for his military prowess, had grown tired of waiting for his inheritance. He joined forces with Philip Augustus against his own father, a final painful betrayal that ultimately broke Henry II's spirit. When Henry II finally died in July 1189, defeated and heartbroken, his last words reportedly cursed his sons. With his passing, the chains that bound Eleanor were finally broken. Richard, now Richard I of England, immediately understood the immense symbolic and practical importance of his mother. One of his very first acts as king was to order Eleanor's release from Winchester. Imagine the scene: the arrival of royal messengers, the quiet preparations, the first breath of true freedom after so many years. Eleanor, now in her late 60s, a formidable age for the medieval period, emerged not as a frail, broken woman, but with her formidable intellect and political acumen undimmed. Her long experience had only deepened her understanding of power. Her return to public life was nothing short of extraordinary. Richard, preparing for the Third Crusade, needed a stable hand to govern England in his absence, someone he could trust implicitly. He entrusted this immense responsibility to his mother, making her his regent. This was an unprecedented role for a woman in medieval England, a testament to Richard's trust in her abilities and her proven political skills. Eleanor, after years of forced inactivity, embraced this new role with characteristic energy. She traveled throughout England, presiding over courts, issuing charters, dealing with judicial matters, and ensuring the smooth administration of the realm. Her reign as regent was marked by a firm hand, a clear vision, and a deep understanding of the intricacies of governance. Perhaps the most significant chapter of her regency, and indeed a pivotal moment in European history, was her tireless effort to secure Richard's release from captivity. While returning from the Crusade in 1192, Richard was captured by Duke Leopold Fürst of Austria and subsequently handed over to Emperor Henry VI of the Holy Roman Empire. This was a devastating blow to the Angevin realm and a profound personal crisis for Eleanor. Imagine the anxiety and the immense pressure she must have felt. Richard, her beloved son, the mighty Lionheart, was imprisoned, and a colossal ransom was demanded for his freedom. Eleanor sprang into action with remarkable determination. She took personal charge of raising the enormous ransom, which amounted to 150,000 marks of silver, a sum equivalent to 2 or 3 years' income for the English crown. This was an immense undertaking, requiring an unprecedented nationwide levy, the seizure of church plate, and the active solicitation of funds from every corner of the kingdom and beyond. She oversaw the complex financial arrangements, dispatched envoys, and negotiated directly with the emperor's representatives. Her diplomatic skill, honed over decades, was put to the ultimate test. It was a monumental task, and her success in gathering such a vast sum speaks volumes about her administrative capabilities and the respect, or perhaps fear, she commanded. Furthermore, Eleanor herself traveled to Germany in 1194, braving the arduous journey and the political complexities of the Holy Roman Empire, to personally deliver the ransom and oversee Richard's release. Imagine this elderly queen undertaking such a perilous mission for her son. Her presence lent immense weight to the negotiations and underscored the Plantagenet determination to free their king. This act of unwavering loyalty to her son stands in stark contrast to the earlier betrayals that had marked her relationships, demonstrating a powerful bond that transcended earlier conflicts. Upon Richard's release, Eleanor continued to play a vital advisory role. She helped mediate disputes between Richard and his rebellious younger brother, John, who had attempted to usurp the throne during Richard's absence. She was a calming, steadying influence in a volatile court, a symbol of continuity and wisdom. She retired to Fontevraud Abbey in France in her later years, a monastic foundation that she and Henry II had greatly patronized, and which served as the traditional burial place for the Angevin royal family. Even in her retirement, her influence remained considerable. She continued to write letters, advise her sons, and maintain her extensive network of contacts. Eleanor of Aquitaine lived an astonishingly long life for her era, passing away in 1204 at the venerable age of 82. Her final resting place is indeed at Fontevraud Abbey, where she lies beside Henry II and Richard I. Her effigy there depicts her reading a book, a symbol of her erudition and lifelong love of learning. Her death marked the end of an era, but her legacy continued to reverberate through the centuries. She had shaped the destinies of 2 kingdoms, witnessed the rise and fall of empires, and navigated a world dominated by men with remarkable courage and intelligence. As we allow the tranquility of this historical reflection to deepen, consider the extraordinary journey of this woman, from a powerful duchess to a formidable queen, from a captive to a regent, a life shaped by alliances and ultimately by the profound human experiences of both giving and receiving betrayal. As our quiet journey through the extraordinary life of Eleanor of Aquitaine draws to a close, we arrive at her twilight years and the enduring legacy she left upon the tapestry of European history. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hush of the Abbey of Fontevraud, a place of peace and spiritual contemplation, yet even here, the echoes of her monumental life would resonate. After Richard the Lionheart's death in 1199, his younger brother John ascended to the English throne. This transition was fraught with peril, as John's claim was challenged by his nephew, Arthur of Brittany, the son of his deceased brother Geoffrey. In this crucial moment, despite her advanced age, Eleanor once again emerged as a formidable political force. She actively supported John's claim, traveling through Aquitaine to secure the allegiance of her vassals and ensuring the stability of the Angevin lands in France. Her endorsement provided vital legitimacy to John, who otherwise faced significant opposition. She helped to solidify his position, even against the ambitions of the French king Philip II Augustus, who continued his relentless efforts to dismantle the Angevin Empire. Eleanor's strategic brilliance was undiminished. She personally traveled to Spain to arrange the marriage of her granddaughter, Blanche of Castile, to Louis, the eldest son of Philip II Augustus of France. This diplomatic coup aimed to secure a lasting peace between England and France, a testament to her vision for a more stable Europe. The marriage, indeed, would eventually lead to Blanche becoming a powerful regent in France, showing Eleanor's continued influence on royal lines across Europe. It was a final, grand act of statesmanship, demonstrating her enduring commitment to dynastic stability and the long-term future of her lineage. Eleanor of Aquitaine passed away on April 1, 1204, at the remarkable age of 82. Her longevity in an era where life expectancy was significantly shorter is itself a testament to her resilience. She was buried as per her wishes at the Royal Abbey of Fontevraud, beside her husband Henry II and her beloved son Richard I. Her effigy at Fontevraud depicts her reclining, reading a book, a symbol not only of her legendary intelligence, but also of the profound peace she may have finally found after a life of relentless activity and profound challenges. Her legacy is multifaceted and profound. Eleanor was a woman who consistently defied the conventional expectations of her time. She was not merely a queen. She was a sovereign in her own right, wielding immense personal power and influence. She inherited the vast and culturally rich Duchy of Aquitaine, a territory larger than the French king's demesne, and skillfully navigated its transfer through two crucial royal marriages. Her life illustrates the complexities of power, the intricate dance of alliances, and the often harsh realities of medieval politics. Eleanor's journey also serves as a compelling exploration of betrayal in its various forms. The perceived betrayals by her first husband, Louis II, during the Crusade, her own pivotal act of siding with her sons against Henry II, which led to her long imprisonment, and the subsequent loyalty she showed to her sons, particularly Richard, when they faced their own challenges. These instances of shifting loyalties and deep-seated conflicts underscore the personal costs of power and the emotional toll of dynastic struggles. Yet, through it all, Eleanor maintained a core sense of self, a fierce determination that allowed her to endure and, ultimately, to triumph in a world designed to limit women. Beyond politics, Eleanor was a significant patron of the arts and culture. The courts of Aquitaine, both under her father and during her own tenure, were centers of troubadour poetry and courtly love, influencing literary traditions across Europe. Her influence helped foster a rich cultural environment in England, bringing the sophisticated traditions of the south of France to the colder climes of the north. Her love for learning and her intellectual curiosity were exceptional for her era, setting her apart from many of her contemporaries. Her story is a testament to the enduring power of remarkable individuals to shape history. Eleanor of Aquitaine was a queen, a mother, a diplomat, a regent, and a survivor. Her life was a grand tapestry, woven with threads of love, power, conflict, and as we have explored tonight, profound moments of betrayal and reconciliation. She remains one of the most captivating figures in medieval history, a woman whose spirit and intellect continue to inspire fascination and study. As the gentle silence of the night embraces us, let the echoes of her remarkable life resonate, a timeless reminder of a queen who truly reigned.